Today, we are very fortunate to have Forrester here to help share with us on our topic about developing your innovation program goals for 2016. First, though, let me do a little housekeeping. First, I'm Gretchen Hoffman. I'm Vice President of Marketing at Brightidea. And Brightidea's innovation management solution offers innovation leaders the right mix of software and services, regardless of where you are on your innovation journey. Okay, today we hope that you'll find it very helpful to talk about goaling as we go in and prepare for 2016. We do have folks standing out on Twitter at our handle Brightidea. We very much welcome hearing from you. We're using hashtag innovation, hashtag leadership today. You are welcome to submit any questions that you have. We will take those at the end. You're welcome to submit them through social, or you will see the Q&A area on the panel here, and you're welcome to submit your questions. I already see quite a few questions coming in, so please note, if we don't get through all the questions, we do make sure to go through the ones with the most votes, so be sure to vote for the questions that you want to be sure are asked. And we will send you a record within a day or so after this session, so do know you will get the record. There'll be great information, so I'm sure you'll want to share it. And with that, I'd very much like to introduce Peter Burris, Vice President, Research Director serving CIOs at Forrester. In his role as Research Director at Forrester, Peter helps set the overall CIO role research agenda. His research team focuses on the evolving relationship between CIOs and CMOs and best practices and business, really business technology from innovation approaches to accelerate business outcomes in social businesses and collaborative strategies. So you can tell he covers a lot and has a lot of great information to be sharing with us. Peter, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you join us today.
Thanks, Gretchen.
So let's go ahead and get started. And just first to have a little conversation about the digital shift, Peter. Can you tell us about the digital shift? I know you've been doing a lot of work with it at Forrester. What's happening? Can you share how urgent it is? Why do companies need to pay attention to it now?
Well, one of the top things on the minds of many CIOs is to better understand what exactly digital means and why it's different from business. And there are, in fact, some things that make digital different. And they are born both of new trends and also a recognition of how the past has continues to inform the present and the future. So let's talk about each of those just for a second. So the first one to note is that if we can't agree on anything else, I think everybody agrees that the social graph is rewiring. Specifically, what we mean by that is that today's markets, which historically have been very generated, very driven by the information that was available to consumers, mainly provided by sellers of technology, are being reset as a consequence of social media. Consumers today always were, or let's put it this way, consumers always were the best source of information for other consumers. That's called word of mouth marketing, and we've known for 40 years that that was the most powerful version of marketing that there was. But today, because of social media, the costs and challenges and inconvenience associated with gaining access to other consumers, people like me who are interested in things that I'm interested in and doing the things that I wanted to do, finding those people is easier than ever. Conversing with them and getting the information that's pertinent to making better markets is much, much easier than it used to be. So the rewiring of the social graph fundamentally means that we're in a situation today where market power is strongly tipping to customers. And hopefully you can see the slide now, Gretchen. Can you see it?
Yes.
It's just a simple little concept, but it goes to the core and the heart of economics and very important on how you're going to end up institutionalizing work. And so it used to be when the social graph was largely structured hierarchically in a broadcast form from sellers out to buyers. And by the way, this is true for both B2C and B2B. Then the institutions, the seller had most of the market power. They had most of the information about what the product was, how it worked, the impacts of using it, the challenges or the potential risks of using it. They knew where it was, where to go to get it. They knew the pricing. They knew the cost models. All that information was either made available to the customer or it was hidden entirely from the customer. As a consequence of this rewiring of the social graph, we're seeing that customers are now able to inform each other. They are better sources of information as far as other customers are concerned, and that is tipping the balance in how market power is set up. So in today's universe, by far, customers are gaining market power much faster, and as a consequence of that, it's forcing technology companies, or forcing all businesses, into a reactive mode. Now, we'll come back to what that means in a second. But there's a related element here, and the related element is customers are smart, and they recognize that one of the primary reasons why they're gaining market power is precisely because of the powerful role that digital plays in providing the right information and the right service to the right person at the right time. And customers are demonstrating a preference for digital engagement methods. Now, it doesn't mean that they are shying away from retail, or they're shying away from other more traditional, let's call it non-digital presence or touch point models. But even when they determine that the right approach, or the right way to get access to a product is through a person-to-person touch point, they're bringing their mobile devices with them. And so they're expressing a strong preference for digital engagement. Now, why is that important? It's important because that companies must respond. They have to respond. They absolutely have to respond with a digital strategy that satisfies the simple reality that customers want to engage digitally, or they want to add digital engagement to the other touchpoint forms. And so we can kind of summarize this big digital picture in a couple of relatively simple ways. Just very quickly, one is that market power is shifting to customers because the social graph's rewiring. Two, that as a social graph continues to rewire, or as a social graph rewires and customers gain market power, they're using digital technologies to accrete more influence and power in the markets they're making. And three, ultimately, it means very strongly that businesses and other institutions must respond with an approach that encourages customers to work very closely with them in a digital way.
Yeah,
Am I back?
Yeah, absolutely. And it is very interesting. I mean, as we see the digital shift, we also hear a lot more about innovation and how it's continuing to, I don't know if explode is too early of a word to say, but can you talk a little bit about, with the digital shift, how do you see the role of innovation management elevating?
Well, so this is going to be a really crucial thing, because the other thing that's important about digital overall is when we talk about digital, we could talk about, some new way of thinking about multi-channel or omni-channel, or wow, we can do something digitally with different types of media. But I think it has to get more grounded than that. And although this might sound abstract, it is about as grounded as you can get. At the end of the day, if it's digital, it's based on data. And things that are based on data now can be processed. They can be turned into software. They can be used from an analytics standpoint. It's an extremely powerful approach to thinking about how business could evolve. Can I take information that's currently embedded in people or in social networks or in rigid formats and existing information systems? Can I liberate that information more by turning it into digital interfaces and artifacts that allow me to very quickly reconfigure the business? And so digital is the process of translating more of business into data, especially and crucially in the form of software. So what does that mean? Let's take a look at that a little bit here. That if we think about what that boils down to, are you seeing my screen?
Not yet.
Okay, let me go back and see if I can do it again. Screen, whoops, come on guys. Screen share. Am I there?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. So here's the simple reality that we're all facing. Because software is becoming so crucial to so much of the new invention that's occurring in markets. And because software is so crucial to the determination by consumers and by businesses about whether or not that new invention is usable and within reach and easily adopted and easily transferred into an organization. This is what's happening in 2016 that's going to really hit all of us on the head. And I want to make a call out here. This is based on research that one of Forrester's best analysts, James McQuivey, has done. And I mentioned down here the Disruptor's Handbook. It's a report that James wrote quite presciently about 3 or 4 years ago. Here's the point. Because we're disrupting and we're innovating more with software and with data, it means that the old disruption techniques that typically required craftsmanship and artisanship and significant amounts of money because we were building physical prototypes, and that the risks associated with introducing those things were very complex because every time that we tried to do something, it was locked into a particular configuration or format or a form. That was the old disruption way. When we look at digital disruption, now we're bringing disruption within the reach of, 10 times, if not 100 times more individuals, because it's like creating code. And we're also dramatically reducing the costs of innovation, because again, we're bringing all of this new innovation potential within reach of people utilizing digital tools. The consequence of that is we see the number of innovators going up and the cost of disruption going down dramatically. It means that we're talking about a world where disruption is going to happen that much faster, and when it happens, it's going to be that much more potent. That is exactly why innovation is moving so close to the center of the stage in a lot of business thinking at the executive ranks and throughout the business, and very importantly, in the minds of your customers too. It's because everybody realizes that this crucial dynamic, that data is becoming more important, especially in the form of software, to how we think about innovation, and that brings disruption and innovation within reach of so many more people. It's going to be so much more powerful and so much more potent that every business has to come up with a strategy for thinking about how they're going to innovate, not in 2020, but right now.
Yeah, it's interesting because we're definitely, I know for 2015, people were saying innovation was coming on even stronger. And, everything we're hearing for 2016 with the whole digital business and everything else, transformation, that it's going to even continue to another level. It's interesting because I know IBM put a study out early 2015 that basically said the top companies are those that are really focused on innovation, those companies that are really outperforming, that 79% of them have dedicated innovation teams, and 48% are more likely to measure financial returns for their innovation investments. And their whole study talks about innovation. We have it on our blog at www.brightidea.com from January, if anyone's interested. But it really starts talking about, look, companies need to take this seriously. And as this whole digital transformation happens, innovation needs to be front and center. So I don't know. I know you mentioned, Peter, that Forrester has a new report coming out, State of the Digital Business. Is there anything else that it talks about? Obviously, the people here are interested in the innovation and what's happening there for innovation management. Is there anything else that you can shed on light that would help folks as they're planning for 2016?
No, I can't. We're done. No. So the short answer is yes. So the thing to note is that it's interesting that IBM study talked about having a dedicated innovation team, and we're also seeing that as well. But one of the things that happens when innovation works and when it happens well, it often happens as a consequence of a lot of individuals getting involved and undertaking or adopting new practices, sometimes very independently of each other. Innovation, the best studies in the world done on innovation have shown that that innovation, typically a lot of different groups participate or are doing similar types of things, but may not even recognize it. And then when they start to connect that I'm doing this and you're doing that, and it looks a lot alike, and if we put it together, we would get that much more powerful in our approach. That's the kind of thing that's happening today. We see so many functions within business that are utilizing what are known as evolutionary methods for creation, for design work, they're all empirical. In other words, they are all based on data and solid testing and feedback. They're all highly iterative. They're focused on doing things really well in short bursts, sprints, if you will. And very importantly, they're opportunistic. When they discover, as a consequence of doing something, that the data says, or the feedback says, that's not the best way to do it this way, that they quickly change and they go to the next iteration with a new vision and a new idea. So these evolutionary methods are an extremely powerful way of thinking about how innovation or about how change should take place, especially with customers. Because remember, the other thing that's a reality here is we're not innovating inside our four walls in the same way that we used to, certainly not in technology. It's not about introducing a financial package that allows our finance function to work differently. We're talking about innovating for our customers. So finding ways so that our customers can do things differently, create new markets, create new value propositions that lead to new levels of profit. Now, this is a crucially important point because we've got all these different groups that in their own ways are doing different approaches, different methods that nonetheless are predicated on a common set of presumptions about what works. And when we take a look across product people and folks in analytics and folks in technology and folks in design, we can start weaving together a very interesting picture that Forrester calls, are you seeing my screen?
Not yet.
Okay, let me go back to it, see if I can't get it to work. Okay, there we go. Now you see it, right?
Yes.
Okay, so Forrester sees our clients starting to weave together what we call the idea disciplines into a coherent whole that is a lightweight cycle that's heavyweight on the disciplines necessary to make things work. IDEA stands for identify, design, engineer, and analyze. And the basic notion here is that more people close to the action and in what we call the age of the customer as a consequence of this rewiring market power moving over to customers, that more of the innovation is going to happen closer and closer to the customer. So out in the rank and file, out close to the action is when a lot of those good ideas are going to happen. And that is what happens within what we call the identify opportunities. So you identify opportunities to improve engagement moments, often out in the ranks. Now, to do that, we need we need a really good understanding of what our business is. So how we engage customers over an extended period of time. We need to have great techniques and technologies for bringing customer-based information in. But we also need great innovation management, because if we're not in a position where we are encouraging those frontline individuals to surface great ideas, where we're making it easy for them to communicate those ideas, we're making it possible to share those ideas across a broad community, test those ideas, prioritize those ideas, and track what the returns are, then we're going to lose access to the best sources of new ideas in the business, those folks on the front line. Now, I'll come back to that because it's in the identify phase where so much, where these new seeds for innovation management are being planted. The design phase is very strongly driven by lessons that we're gathering in customer experience and how to use design thinking to take the priorities and the ideas that come out of identify and turn them into prototypes in an iterative way that are both going to be satisfying to a customer, but ultimately also designed so that the customer can get access to whatever the value proposition is very easily. Design creates these prototypes that have to be turned into industrial strength offerings. And that's what continuous delivery does. Here's where the IT organization gets deeply involved in today's, or let's put it this way. this is where tech management gets involved. So it's going to be the IT organization plus other professionals that are very focused in what we call the business technology agenda for applying digital assets to win, serve, and retain customers. So they're going to utilize continuous delivery practices, including agile development, DevOps approaches to putting things or promoting assets into production. Very importantly, security, to secure the digital assets that we're putting wherever they might be, and ensuring that we're getting appropriate returns out of those assets. And then ultimately, all of this has to be instrumented with analytic techniques that allow us at each step of this process to continuously improve and enhance both our activities and our decision-making models and approaches, but also whatever it is we're ultimately delivering. And a couple of key things that are necessary here, especially, is to have really great control over data sources and really understand how we're going to use intellectual property appropriately to mine. And so this is the basis of how we think multiple different domains within our clients or within an organization are going to ultimately find themselves bringing together a lot of participants that are going to be instrumental to creating the new sources of value, mainly digital, in future markets. And that innovation management is going to end up being essential to surfacing, communicating, and managing that whole process.
Okay, great. I mean, I think it's very informative. I think we've done a good job helping folks understand innovation management's key for 2016. And given the topic of our hangout today, developing goals for innovation management for 2016, let's start getting into a little bit more meat in terms of how we help folks determine what are the things they should consider as they're looking at, the goals, and what will help them be successful. So,
sure. The first thing I think that every company has to do is recognize that innovation can and must be practiced. I think that's a challenge that most folks have, is they say we're going to do more innovation, but they don't recognize that it can be practiced. So within innovation management itself, we have to institute new disciplines to ensure that we are building up the chops so that we can be more successful at innovation. One of the things that I like to share is that the prime innovation is believing that is recognizing that innovation, in fact, can be practiced. Let me go back to the screen share. Okay. Now, the way that that's ultimately going to play out is we think that there's going to be three broad things that folks are going to have to do. Many of our clients have started down this process, but we think that it's going to accelerate next year of actually putting in place, again, the chops and the practices necessary to be more successful around idea management, where we get ideas from the outside, about the implementation structures, which includes the traditional, good guys of change management and communications, but increasingly is going to tie incentives into the picture to try to ensure that we are getting the right innovations, reflections of innovation in our business, but also incentives for external parties as well. And then finally, the control structures around governance, funding, and measurement. So I think that the first thing that we need to do in 2016, and the first goal for everyone that aspires to either lead innovation management within an organization or be a part of an organization that is routinely innovating, is to look around your business and ask yourselves, are we successfully introducing these practices, and especially around the idea itself that we can practice innovation? And if that's not happening, that's the first goal, is to get people to buy into the idea that innovation can and must be practiced.
Great. Peter, what I think I might do is share a couple slides that we just had from a survey we did of our customers, just to get into the what do you consider for goals. Sure. It might just be helpful for folks to see some real, I assume you can see the screen too.
I can.
All right. So just for folks on the phone, we just did a survey with all of our customers, and it was done in September of this year with Tech Validate. And it was interesting. One of the questions I thought might be pertinent to this is we asked what best describes the main mandate or goal of your innovation program. And you can see here 36% culture or employee engagement. These are definitely areas that people are looking at as they're addressing the goals they have for the innovation program. Obviously, the next big idea, 23%, continuous improvement. Okay, and then also just hearing from customers or partners. Those are also some big ones. So I thought that might be interesting for people to be able to see and to share. And then the other one that was interesting is executive buy-in. So it was interesting for people to be able to understand, you know, how much are they getting mind share with the C-levels. So 25% are really directly engaged and have supportive CEOs. And then 58% have top-down general awareness at the C-level with support from one or more execs, and then and so on. But you can really see there's really a big need to have senior level sponsorship and buy-in. So that's definitely a goal that we encourage people to continue to have, set forth for the innovation programs, and continue to grow each year. Okay, so I just wanted to share that, and then let me.
Hey, Gretchen.
Yes.
Can I make a quick comment on that?
Sure.
So the thing that I think that ties very nicely into this notion of first, you know, take a look at your own culture and make sure that you are in fact practicing innovation inside, or you are set to practice innovation. You're trying to. The thing that scares me, the only thing that scares me about that data is the 8% that are looking at customers as a source of ideas or as an outside-in perspective. If I could just encourage everyone on the phone to never lose sight of the fact that we are in the age of the customer, that the closer that the more likely or the more frequently that the ideas emanate from or close to the customer, the more successful you're going to be with an innovation if it's something that is going to be valued by the customer. So that's the only thing I'd say is that 8% number kind of scares me a little bit. And I hope everybody walks away saying, you know what, I got to put the customer still front and center of this whole thing, because it's more likely to generate the types of early wins that are necessary to sustain the process of implementing innovation management tools, technologies, and practices.
Yeah, no, good point. And keep in mind, people are going to have multiple goals. And I think what's also important for the folks listening in is it's really not a one-size-fits-all. In other words, depending on where your innovation program is on the maturity cycle, right? If you're just getting started, if you're rebooting, if you've already got a mature, what you'd consider a more mature program, that might vary in terms of where your goals should lie for 2016, and we'll give you some specifics as we move forward. Peter, you and I have talked about maturity models, and what we had discussed is it might be helpful if Forrester shared the maturity model that you have, and then I wanted to go ahead and share what Brightidea is using with our customers. Okay? Sure,
and yeah, absolutely. And so our maturity model fundamentally is predicated on three things. And let me share it with you really quick here, Gretchen. The first thing, or actually I should say four things. The first thing that we ask is, within an organization, when we work with a client, we ask them, to what degree is innovation management recognized as a set of disciplines? That's a crucially important question. If it's not recognized as something that can be practiced, it should be practiced, it's going to be very challenging to have it diffuse within an organization to the point that it's generating the types of returns that are possible. Related to that, obviously, is to what degree are some of the practices and processes and mechanisms formalized? Are they in place? Are they documented? Are they available for anybody to access? And then the third one is, well, if it's recognized that it's important, and at least the procedures for how you go about doing it are formalized, how broadly is it practiced? Is it something that people are actually doing? And the last one is, once it's being practiced, in fact, is it being institutionalized? Has it been baked into how work is conducted? So let me explain what I mean by this. That the idea of thinking about development as delivering a final product that then is done is very different from the idea of development as the idea of delivering something that creates a range of future options. That's what I mean by institutionalized. That it really has embedded itself in the way that folks think about what the business is and how it evolves. And when we think about the steps to mature innovation management, we see clients going through a 6-step process. One, where all of these things are non-existent. Second, when they're ad hoc. You can find them in places. Typically, however, it's not well recognized, but it might be somewhat formalized in certain parts of the business. So in response to working with a particular partner, or perhaps with a particular customer that's a little bit more advanced than you are and thinking about how new value forms are generated, that maybe you enter into something that looks like innovation management. Repeatable means that it's starting to be recognized and it's now being formalized, and certain groups within your firm are now practicing it on a repeatable basis. And here's where you want to start highlighting those the real strong players in your organization, and start to trumpet their what is probably going to be greater successes, and ask them to participate in a process for more deeper documentation of how innovation works, so that ultimately the returns can be more broadly measured, and eventually that the firm itself at an institutionalized level can talk about how we're optimizing the business to increase our innovation success.
Okay, and then maybe elaborate a little more as we get into the topic further on goals, right? How do the innovation management goals really get set? How do the innovation leaders make sure they're on the right path to setting those goals, Peter?
Well, so if we think about some of the core goals, the first thing to note is that this is almost a summary. I kind of touched upon a number of them. The first thing we think that all companies are going to have to do is start practicing innovation. Again, from my perspective, that is the prime innovation. Recognize that this is something that can be practiced. If it can be practiced, it can be documented and codified. If it can be documented and codified, you can find software tools that work in your setting. Crucially important, and you need to look around your organization. That should be the key goal for 2016, is an executive to rank and file acknowledgement that this is important and that it's part of the future of the company. Now, related to that, within tech management, about 70% of budgets within tech management are relatively programmed. In other words, they are paying off the legacy, they're enhancing or updating the legacy. But about somewhere, it's amazing that how the number doesn't change that much. It's somewhere between 26 to 30% every single year of monies out of tech management is devoted to new projects. The issue, however, is that a lot of that new project effort isn't done utilizing innovation practices or innovation approaches. It's just done in a very traditional project management kind of a model, which, as we all know, is fraught with all kinds of success challenges. So we think that it's time for business people, along with technology management professionals, to start bringing more of that 30% of budgets that are being dedicated to build new stuff and bring it underneath this notion of the innovation umbrella, so that the more groups engaged in idea and idea-like disciplines, the better, because it just increases the rate of diffusion of these innovation practices and dramatically increases the likelihood that you'll be successful more near term as well as longer term in your business. The last one, I think that as we try to get everybody to buy into the notion of how you need to start practicing innovation, I think we also have to get our executives to start thinking outside in. That's kind of why I raised the point about the 8% that are looking at customers as a source of innovation. I think we really want to start thinking more outside in, and very importantly, more software first. It is the fact that we can do so many new things in software that's catalyzing this incredible new era in understanding how businesses can engage customers and vice versa, and it's driving this need for speed and innovation. I was invited to go to a recent forum at Stanford by Draper, Fisher, and Jurvetson, an investment capital firm, and they were one of the main investors in Tesla. And Elon Musk spoke about Tesla and talked about, the idea of the self-driving car. Now, we've heard a lot about that, but think about the self-driving car not as while you're in the car, it's driving around. Think about the self-driving car as when you're somewhere and you need to get from point A to point B, and maybe you don't have your car with you, your car just will drive to you, show up, and be ready for you to go. That's the kind of thing that we can start doing when we start thinking about the car as a software platform and not a platform for an internal combustion engine that cheaply turns energy into motion.
That's a great story, and I think we're all hoping that we're going to have one of those cars someday. So Peter, thank you. These are great insights. And just as a reminder for folks that are listening in, if you have any questions, please be sure to go to the Q&A panel. We will start questions in a couple minutes. Also, we are listening and engaging on social at Brightidea, and our hashtag is innovation, #leadership. And we have Peter Burris from Forrester, and this is Gretchen Hoffman, Vice President of Marketing at Brightidea, and we are discussing how to develop the great goals that you need for your innovation programs in 2016 so you can have a lot of success. So with that, we have a few more questions, a little more dialogue, and then we'll go ahead and get into the questions. So one thing I would like to do is share the model I'd mentioned that Brightidea has been using. So let me go ahead and get that up here.
Cool.
Real quick. Oops. Okay. So this is our maturity model that we utilize, and obviously there's different ones. As I mentioned before, as you're looking at goals for 2016, you really want to make sure that you're thinking about where does your innovation program stand along the maturity model. Like, for example, are you just in your first year and you're really focused, maybe you want to be focused on engagement, right? Maybe you have a few dedicated resources. That means you really want to look at, we believe, how do you get more engagement? That means doing challenges, for example. We've got various ROI analysis that have done that basically says that companies should look to be doing a minimum of about 5 challenges in the first year in order to start being on the right path towards success. And the types of goals you might look at here might be number of new registrations, unique participants. Maybe it's average visitors or visits. You may also look at how many different departments could you expand to to increase your engagement. So those are just some of the types of goals you want to look at. Again, it's going to depend what aligns with your company's strategy and overall what are you trying to do and why do you have the innovation initiative. But again, those are some things that you want to think about that you might consider for goaling, really under the premise that you're looking for more engagement. And again, you never want to forget about you need those executive sponsors like I mentioned earlier. And then the next phase here you see is expand. This might be maybe you're in year 2 or 3. You're focusing on outcomes, all right? Now you need to have a little bit more to be able to show. We have dashboards, for example, that our customers utilize to help really see what are the results. And we just came out with a new command center so that really the innovation leader is able to more quickly be able to showcase the metrics and success that they're having, okay? And, from this standpoint, the types of goals you might look at is number of successful challenges. We usually recommend maybe at least 10 challenges you're trying to do. And it's really important along those lines to look at doing like a cadence calendar, right? I mean, challenges are a really key way to keep your innovation program successful. You have things to showcase on how their success. If you put together a cadence calendar, one of our customers does that, or more than one of them, to really show what are the different challenges you want to have throughout the year, what are the different topics, right? Want to recruit great sponsors to be able to have them and market your challenges. All of that helps you to be able to show and succeed with your goals. So again, back, on this, when you're trying to expand, you've got, your program in place 2 or 3 years. As I mentioned, look at number of challenges. You look at dollars projected value. You might look at numbers and dollars of tracked outcomes, Okay, so again, all along the lines of outcomes and what can you showcase, to executive management. And then taking a little bit further, you've been out a little bit longer, maybe it's over 3 years or so, we look to try to say, what else can we do to scale your innovation program? And a lot of this has to do with really making sure the culture is throughout the organization, the innovation culture, right? So this is where you're maybe trying to scale across geographies, for example, maybe even more departments, right? And you're focusing on the employee cultural climate. You might try to do that through surveys, right? More outcomes and more metrics. How many business units are participating. So those are some of the types of goals that you always want to start looking for. Also how many use cases are people utilizing? Maybe there's more that can be applied as you continue to scale. So hopefully these examples can give you some specific goals you may want to consider as you're, moving towards 2016 planning. Again, really look at how mature is your program. And if you're just getting started, pick 1 or 2 goals, get some challenges, start talking about with executives and really be able to showcase some success so you can continue the momentum and get more people to want to participate. Okay. So hopefully that helps a little on the goaling, a little more specifics. Peter, you've given some really great insights to help the innovation leaders get the right goals. Are there any closing comments before we jump over to the Q&A?
No, I guess in quick summary, again, the age of the customer means customers are in charge. They like digital. You have to be digital. The only way that you're going to succeed is if you ramp up the innovation potential of your business and do it in a managed way.
Great, very succinct. Thank you. One comment I do also want to make is we talked about you're trying to set goals and how do we get successful in innovation program. Brightidea did come out with a new fall release October 21st, and you can see it on our website. But just to let folks know, we now have innovation apps. It's the first time ever in the innovation space where it really allows you to do challenges. We have a design thinking type of app, a research app. There's a lot of different things you can do with apps now, which helps you get up and running quickly. 20% time app, hackathon now. So, and I mentioned this because frankly, last night I went and did a web store myself with our problem solve app, and it took me less than 30 minutes, which was very impressive. And so I'm a testament now to my own company. And I just really encourage you, if you haven't seen the apps, to really ask to be able to see them. I think it would make innovation leaders' jobs a lot easier and much more efficient. So with that, I do encourage you folks to go to www.brightidea.com if you'd like to hear more. And then also we do have a challenge hangout next week with AXA and one of our innovation experts. So I encourage you, we'll be sure to put a registration link in when we send you the record to this one. But I do want to comment to you that we do have a lot of ways we could help you get up and running with a successful program. And with that, I'm done with the quick ad. We will jump right to your questions. So Peter, first one here is for you, of course. How to design and implement an innovation program at SMEs with subject matter experts. I'm not sure. What's the best way to design and implement an innovation program using your subject matter experts?
Is it SMEs, it's small, medium enterprise, or is it subject matter expert?
That's what it says, SMEs. I'm trying to figure out which one it is. So
well, let's try it because they're both
good questions. Yeah, exactly.
So let's try to see if we can't do both of them very quickly. Let's presume it starts with subject matter expert. So if we think about technology and what we're doing with digital, for the first 50 years of the tech industry, the subject matter experts that largely mattered were the technology subject matter experts, the people who understood the hardware, people who understood the software, people who knew how to implement things. And the business people were largely on the sideline. In the age of the customer, we're really focused on customers, doing things outside in, engaging customers digitally, where there is no standard set of processes for how we go about engaging customers. It means that the subject matter experts around the customer and around the activity set associated with touching the customer and making something happen with the customer become a lot more important. I mean, unbelievably more important. We can do a lot of different things with very, very different and simple and straightforward technologies today. So to answer this as though it was a subject matter expert, SME subject matter expert are going to become much, much more important to innovation in the age of the customer than the technology people. The technology people are not unimportant. They're the ones that have to ensure that everything works and happens. But we have to presume that we're going to be working more intimately than ever with subject matter experts. Now, at SMEs, small, medium enterprises, it's a great question. And on the one hand, it would be easier, and on the other hand, it's harder. Why would it be easier? Because you're not trying to, because the social system that you're working within typically is smaller. Or I'm sorry, yeah, it's smaller. So it's not that you have that as many people to try to change as you evolve the notion of what it means to do innovation. The downside of it is a smaller social system often has deeper prejudices and biases that are more explicit. Very often it's the owner, the fact that the owner just says, I don't want to do it this way. So important to identify the biases against innovation as a set of practices. And on a subject matter, at an SME, at an SME, it's more important to identify the biases against innovation as a set of practices and on any particular innovation as you go through the process. Why is it more important? Because typically you can identify them and you can locate them in particular individuals or groups of individuals. And so you now have a target audience that you can work with as you're trying to make a change. The culture of an SME often is more resident in particular people than it is in a large enterprise, which is a little bit more amorphous, may take a lot more work. So digital changes the underlying financials of doing something new. A lot of SMEs, well, let's put it this way. We have seen a lot of new billion-dollar companies pop up in the tech industry as a consequence of what you can do with software. We're going to continue to see that no matter what the nature of the business is, where it started. And so the other thing is that innovation management could create something that scales really fast or needs to scale really fast because of the underlying economics of digital technologies. So that's the other thing that I'd say is you can start small, but find yourself having to respond in unexpected ways because of scale questions.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for answering it both ways, because I clearly was stumbling which one we were trying to get at there. There's another question. This is interesting. I'm guessing it came in early on, but maybe you could make a few additional comments on it because it's got quite a few votes here. In general, what's your view on how to develop innovation program goals? Now, of course, that's the topic we have here. But possibly they mean the process. What do you think of first? But that's the question. How do you develop them?
Yeah, it's a great question, and you know, the perspective or the approach that I took in the presentation or in the conversation here was start with the culture and the people and see if you can't embed it more deeply within your organization, because the more people you have participating in the process, the more likely that they themselves will create innovation. They'll use a common lexicon to talk about what they want, what they think can be done. And as a consequence, your goals are, in many respects, a natural outcome of innovation, of the innovation practices. Gretchen, I think, took a really good approach, looking at it more from the standpoint of, for some of the particular tools and some of the particular concepts that are becoming more popular within, let's call it a little bit narrower slice of the innovation community, if we presume that the innovation community ultimately is going to be everyone or most everyone in business and markets, that it's important to use both. That we want to see in folks that are actually driving innovation programs to do things like identify the number of different challenges and whatnot that we want to run in the coming year. But I think it's especially important that that our innovation goals in 2016 keep coming back to honestly answering the question: have we moved the needle on making our corporation more ready to accelerate innovation within our business?
Okay, excellent, excellent. By the way, there is a comment here that no one was able to see the maturity chart. So we'll make sure that, that's visible, or we can share it when we send out the follow-up on the email, okay? And I'm not sure which of the two maturity charts, if it was the one that I showed or Forrester's, so I'll make sure to listen to the record and see which one did not show, okay? The other question that came up is, what will next generation digital transformation mean for innovation across industries like gamifying tools, new simulation, virtual reality, etc.?
Well, another great question. So, and I think that there's kind of two interesting points to be made. The first one is, when we think about industry, we think about industry organization, vertical industry, and whatnot. That is basically a concept that grew out of the observation that certain firms that serve a common set of customers with common value propositions tend to have their assets commonly arranged. They tend to have the same type of machines and the same type of plants, often in the same location, similar supply chains, et cetera. And most of those industries, historically, mostly we've seen what is known as high asset specificities. That set of assets was limited in its, or was highly specialized to a particular set of production undertakings. This notion of digital is really interesting because the minute we start doing more things in software, asset specificity goes down. In other words, we can reconfigure the most important productive elements of the firm very, very rapidly. And so the first thing I think it notes is that your future competitors are likely to not be the ones that you think about every day. They're going to be new, but they're also going to be established companies that identify that something's adjacent to them and they can rapidly move into the space or a space because of their ability to do something digital. So the first thing I'd say is that the very concept of innovation, digital innovation and digital business, is going to alter the way we think about industries themselves. The second thing I'd say related to that is that there is the range of information that we'll be able to digitize is just absolutely inexhaustible. It's just amazing how fast the tools are going to improve to help us through big technologies like IBM's Watson, to be able to take all this data out there and have it almost act in an intelligent way, if we kind of ratchet down some of the market hype about Watson, to provide very powerful clues about what would be the best thing to do and how we should go about doing it. We haven't even talked about the possibility of, let's call it the post-digital world, where we start thinking about the role that biology is going to play as we think about the idea of utilizing different approaches to allowing us to create proteins that can be constructed and translated into all manner of different goods and services, and including very powerful pharmaceuticals. So the thing that I want to emphasize and answer the question is the magnitude of the changes that we're talking about are going to be structural and permanent. And by getting really good at this stuff right now, we're setting ourselves up and our businesses up to be more successful as these changes start to accelerate even further.
Great. One last question. I know we're getting to the top of the hour here. So one last question, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up. Peter, how best do you start and develop an innovation program for an older, established, analytically minded workforce? We feel innovation is too conceptual and want ROI proof that the effort is worth it.
So how do you go about, I'm sorry, I coughed in the middle of that.
How do you go about getting started to develop an innovation program for older, established, analytically minded workforces who feel that innovation is too conceptual and they want ROI proof to know if it's worth it?
Yeah, I understand. That's a big question, and I think it's one of the reasons why IDEA becomes so important, is because if your workforce has not adopted the belief that increasingly change is going to come and success is going to be more likely if everything that we do is more iterative, more empirical, and more opportunistic. If you're in a situation where your workforce fundamentally disagrees with that proposition, then it's never going to be easy to introduce innovation management that fundamentally is predicated on the idea that we surface great ideas quickly, we utilize as many smart people to do it as best as we can, that we're very focused on the quality of the idea and the likelihood of success. Then obviously we have to marry that with the other side of this, is that if there's one group that is often late to the party, it's the people in finance, who often are saying, yeah, but it doesn't fit into the budget plan for this year. The impedance mismatch between budgeting and finance, and for example, in tech management, agile development and how we handle sprints and the way of thinking about investing in options for the future, is something that's going to is going to get a lot of attention over the course of the next few years. You can change the minds of finance people if you're able to show success, but you can't show that success if the engineering, stodgy, creative people are either unwilling to become a little bit more empirical in their approach, or unwilling to recognize that the best way to reduce risk is to show something early and often, as opposed to wait 3 years and roll it out in some sort of big bang event.
Yeah, I know. I think it's a great point. I mean, there has to be some people that actually care. There needs to be some executive level sponsorship. But also what we find is that there's some folks that come to us that want to at least do a test, and they just don't have a lot of money to invest. So we do have some entry point options that we give to some of the people that come to us, so that they at least can do some challenges and be able to try to show some results. And if that success proves to folks that it's in fact worthwhile, then they can grow from there. So it really depends if people are even willing, at the company to look at entry point and tests, and will they look at the results from those tests, right? Yep. So, depends again how much they're willing to invest, I guess. But we do have some entry point levels that have helped some of our customers then be able to grow. So, by the way, very much appreciate, Peter, having you join us. What I'd like to do as we start to close, because there's people that said they did not see your maturity model, I'd love it if you could just put it up, and then we'll close on that, so that people at least can have that visual. Would that be okay?
You want me to pop it up?
Yeah, just pop it up as we close here, so that before I stop the record, so those folks that said they were not able to see it can go ahead and see it. Okay?
Interesting.
And I thank everybody very, very much for joining. Thank you for the great questions. So I would not get to every one of them. There's the maturity model that you can see from Forrester. And have a great day, everyone. And please do go to www.brightidea.com for further information on how you can get your innovation program to another level of success. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.